Welcome to Ethos Effect Podcast.
Welcome to the Ethos Effect Podcast.
Podcast.
After building and learning from failures,
We discovered our ethos and leveraged it
to scale, sell, and build again our seven-figure businesses.
whether you're starting out or leveling up.
This podcast is your source for innovation and lasting impact.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Ethos Effect Podcast. I am Donovan Ryckis, joined by my wife. Now,
Oh, officially, my name is changed. I am Chelsea Ryckis. I'm not a fraud.
She is also, fun fact, now a citizen.
Woo,
Congratulations.
We're going to need an episode just on that.
Yeah. So today's episode was really a great conversation. It was a ton of fun. I think we just made our new best friends, even though they could not live further from us. We're in Florida, they're in Oregon. So
Womp, womp,
womp,
womp.
womp on that. But Emma and Jordan Walbridge. So they are a couple and they work together. Really interesting business, Gameway, which is basically think of it as an arcade in airports. So you're in the airport, you got time to kill, airports suck, they're uncomfortable. They give people a place to kind of pass some time quickly and entertain themselves.
They are literally solving the universal problem of boredom. I find it really fascinating. We had an amazing conversation. So a lot about business. We actually started our business in 2017 as a married couple. So did they. They've had huge growth and scale like we did. So we talked a bit through that. And then the juicy part is the marriage. The dynamics, the interpersonal workings, having a family, what that looks like. How do you do it? Disclaimer, there's some swear words in this one, guys. If that offends you, apologies in advance, but holy, when you get passionate, it's just go time.
That's when you know Chelsea's having fun.
If I'm dropping F-bombs.
Yeah. All right, enough about us. Let's get into the episode with Jordan and Emma Walbridge. All right, we have Jordan and Emma Walbridge joining us today on the Ethos Effect Podcast. How are you guys?
Doing great.
Wow, thank you for having us.
Great. So Chelsea and I are really excited because you guys are also married and in business together and looking
and we're
at
still married.
And still married.
Still married, yeah. Still going well. And it looks like you guys actually started your business together about the same time we did. I don't know if you guys had another business before then. We'll get into that. But your business is Gameway, as Jordan has given away. So can you tell us a little bit what is Gameway and how'd you guys get into it?
Well, listen, I could talk and talk, but I always want to defer to my amazing co-founder and wife. Do you want to kick this one off, love, or you want me to do it?
Sure, I'll fill in. You can always fill in. So Gameway is bringing entertainments to airports. We believe that airports are actually typically a little bit boring places, especially if you have long layovers. We wanted to change that. We think that your experiences should start when you arrive to the airports, and we make airports entertaining by offering video game lounges. So what we've done is people come, they tell us how long they have till they get their flight, whether it's 30 minutes, an hour, or some people are there all day. It's amazing how long people are at airports. And they get the chance to play on something that they're really familiar with, which is Xbox, PlayStation, PC games. So you could be playing your game at home on the couch, check your flight, run through TSA, and then actually continue your game at our locations. And it just is there to bring some enjoyment.
Wow.
We desperately need that in airports. I know.
Amen.
Is there a reason in general that airports are so terrible? Like, is it just cost of real, like, what is it that, like, even the businesses that are in there they seem to be poorly run and they're not made for comfort or entertainment. Like you just hate it. Like, what is
It's a
that?
small
Donovan,
industry.
are you trying to
We're
get us in
not very
trouble in
big
our
in
industry?
trouble, yeah.
Yeah.
But something that I did read recently, and I thought it was really true, was the fact that, airports are actually run by a lot of small or lots of businesses, different businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And we're therefore not a collaborative, industry as much.
Right.
So when you have lots of small or medium-sized businesses competing for spaces, you tend sometimes to, not progress as quickly as like industries that are very collaborative and advance together. And I do think that plays a big role in the industry.
Interesting.
Yeah, I just want to echo that too, is that, the airports are often run by amazing folks who work for local government. some type of municipality, and they're doing amazing jobs and everything else they're doing. And then you have in the airport industry big conglomerates, and these big conglomerates have been around for a very long time. And in the way they do things, oftentimes it's rinse, repeat, because it's worked for so long. Right. And it's not until you get a company in there that's really striving to be very disruptive in ways that they can't even imagine how to do it. And it's not cookie cutter. You can't really replicate it. They don't really understand how it works. And that's where the disruption happens. And I think the airport industry is ripe for massive disruption. And we're just happy that Gameway is one of the on the forefront of things that we're doing. And like to Emma's point, our focus is always going to be making airports entertaining. And I think through that lens, there is so much opportunity that we can expand to. Currently, we're doing it with video games, which, that's the majority of people play video games. In fact, for those of you who don't play video games watching this or leading this, you're actually the minority. So you're the weird one, not me.
I guess I'm the weird one here.
Yeah, right?
That's usually the case, honestly, so it's fine.
But so for us, it's like that was a great medium to introduce, to go into the airports where they're trapped. They have a lot of time. Oftentimes, folks who are in the airport are affluent. Like about over 50% of them have 6 figures or more. So to travel these days, you have to have money in order to do it. So you have the money, you have the time, and you're just looking around for what to do. And so this is how we wanted to introduce it. But make no mistake about it, like our focus, like I said, with the entertainment aspect, you can do really unique things with the retail, with traditional lounges, with food and beverage. And so as we continue to progress Gameway and what we're doing, I think between Emma and I, our vision is to disrupt the entire aspect of what can be done.
So certainly the fastest way to pass time as well. So how did this idea kind of start? Did you guys have the background in games or in airports?
Or boredom?
What happened?
I'm just kidding.
The latter, I think. So we had no industry experience in airports, and we had a very steep learning curve, which, there is a reason why there are not a lot of businesses in the airport space, and that is there is a lot of red tape. There is a lot of unique processes that we just weren't aware of. And honestly, it probably was a good thing that we didn't know how hard it would be. And then until we had to do it. But we got started with Gameway because we were in a mall together, and we were, it was a weekend, just enjoying time together. And we saw a quasi similar concept, which was a location that had video game offerings. And it was made, primarily for the children. And it was packed full of kids, right? Clearly, mums and dads had dropped off kids and then gone shopping. And we were intrigued. There you go, see? We were intrigued as to this different concept. And, when we came back to revisit this location, it was completely empty. And we got talking as to why. And the business concept worked really well Friday evenings after schools till Sunday mornings. And then the rest of the time, people were working, people were at schools, it was hard to fill. And that was a similar problem that I used to experience. So I used to work in the hotel industry back in England. I used to run hotels, and I could fill a hotel at the weekend. That's easy. Everyone's off, right? Wanting to go on vacations. But during the week, that's where the challenge is. And that is what makes a really good hotel, is when you can fill it during the week. And so I looked to Jordan and I said, this concept would work if we brought it to a market that is busy all the time with its target demographic. And that's the airports. And I almost, when I said those words, I saw the light bulb go off on Jordan's head. And I'm like, oh, should I have said those words? What have I unleashed here? And it really was he was unleashed. And he actually has a bull behind him. You can't quite see it because I say he is my bull. He goes through brick walls to make things happen. And he just went down the research rabbit hole, and it just snowballed from there in terms of how the demographics of travelers fit this business concept. And it started from there.
One of the things you mentioned that I had always kind of wondered in airports is, I imagine these challenges you were talking about was mainly in acquiring and negotiating the real estate, with it being a little bit of a government entity instead of private real estate, I'm sure.
Prolong that
Yes.
Oh,
process a bit.
look, I think that so to get into an airport is amazing. It's like landing on Park Place and Boardwalk combined. Like you have a lot of people there. You get everyone's got money and they have time and they're going to spend it on something while they're in an airport. Rarely do you go into an airport and not spend money. Very rarely, right? So those spaces are only, there's only limited to so many of them. It's very unique in that way. And when the airport turns that space over, they have to do it in a very fair way. There are people right now who are sitting in prison because they took bribes to get themselves into an airport, and so there's laws passed to help prevent that. And so when we went and with our new idea and change the world, it's a lot of roadblocks that you have to come into. So you have to negotiate ways that are very different, super high risk in order to do it, and very expensive, by the way, in order to do it. So that's like any entrepreneur. If you're gonna go into something, just be prepared. You might fail, or you most likely will fail, and you probably could lose everything. But the upside is more than you can even imagine, and that's what we're focused on. And so in this particular place with Gameway, we have 6 locations now across the country. We're opening up a whole bunch more as well in 2024 and 2025. We are expanding massively, but in order to get there, we had to see this vision and say, this is going to work. We had to convince the airports authority that this is worth the risk on some spaces that have not done very well. So they're not going to give you prime A1 locations. They're going to give you ones that, good luck, right? Good luck. And if you don't make it work, then you need to take all your shit and get out. And that's the way it works. And so for us to take this risk, it was worth it. And we thought that this thing could change the industry. And so far it's been really well received.
Yeah. To tell you a story on how Gameway did it, though, we had this idea and we were like, great, what do we do now? Because an idea is
Nothing.
It's not worth the piece of paper.
Yes.
Exactly. It's nothing if you don't do anything about it. And that's the big difference with entrepreneurs, is going to actually do it and making it happen. And Jordan, is definitely the salesman. That's why I'm in America and we're not in England. He is the better salesman here.
I'm also better looking.
She has hair. I'm just kidding. I was joking.
And we had this idea, and the natural thing is we went to our local airport, the one nearest to us, which is PDX Airport, and we were like so excited, and we thought they would be so excited to hear about this new thing that's going to change their airport and be awesome, right? And we had a reality check, majorly. They wouldn't meet with us. They wouldn't meet with us even though we were a woman-owned business, and Jordan is a disabled veteran. Like, come on, meet with us. We've got this great idea. And it was join the line. It's called an RFP process. It might take 3 years to an RFP that is applicable to you. And then good luck, right? And no, they don't want to meet with us. And we had the hard reality of like, what do we do next?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They won't meet with us. What do we do? Do we give up on this idea? And it was Jordan who was like, why are we thinking so small? Why are we thinking of our small airports? Let's go to the top busiest airports in America and pitch it to them. So he did, literally did. He spent time researching their email addresses, which is not the typical way of how to get an airport. It really isn't. It shows like how junior we were in our knowledge with the airport industry. Right. But it worked. It landed us a couple of meetings, and DFW was actually the one that agreed to take the risk on this new concept and prove it.
Isn't it so fun? Like the disruption process, and you guys are obviously younger as well, like being the disruptors in an industry, being innovative, being dynamic and bold, like it's incredibly energizing, but holy shit, does it take a minute, and those roadblocks that we're talking about, right? And the story you just shared reminded me of, so Donovan and I are disruptors in our industry, right? Going against the grain, shaking shit up in an age-old industry that has benefited off of the status quo, very similar to your situation. And your story of that first big contract reminds me of when that happened to us, and, going above and beyond to secure that first big client and being like, oh my God, somebody else believes that we can do this. Like, this is
Yeah.
amazing, right? And
Yeah.
just that first deal, how exciting it is. And it just gives you that energy to keep going, right? Because it's not an easy thing what we're all doing. I had a very specific question. I want to know, when you look back 2017 to now, those startup years, what do you think was the biggest challenge and the biggest failure that you guys faced?
COVID, maybe in
Oh,
between there.
interesting. Yeah. How the hell did
I
COVID work?
mean, shit. Like we opened the summer of 2018, and when we opened, we had these meetings with the airport in the summer of 2017, and then we opened the location in summer of 2018. And during that time, we weren't taking salaries or whatever, where we have to sign contracts, raise money, sell equity, pitch the vision, do all that, right? And then get going. But we weren't taking salaries for this. When we first opened in 2018. Finally, we could take a paycheck. We're doing great. We opened basically in July 1. And in those summer months, airport's fantastic. You go to like September, dude, people have done their traveling, and now it's just like these business travelers. And so we weren't ready for the ebb and flow of airport traffic. And so it's then like, how do you pivot, and once you open, what does the customer wanting? What are we missing? How do we change it? And then go back to like, hey, babe, we're not gonna take another paycheck until
By the way.
until this thing can turn it around, right?
Yeah.
And then we figured it out. And we turned it around in March of 2019, and we were doing phenomenal, cash flowing well. It's so important for a young company to cash flow, because if you're not cash flowing, then you have to continually pulling in, selling equity and stuff, and then you're like, at some point, who are you working for at that? So you got to be able to have that cash flow, and we did. And then going into 2020, we thought, I remember Emma and I talking like, dude, this is the year. Like, we are
Let's
going to
go.
and crush it,
Oops.
right? We go to this trade show in February, at the end of February, and it was like 1 week before COVID officially like started shutting things down, right? And the trade show was an industry trade show, which like they did like it was several days, and they had like a session where someone mentioned a virus in China, and it's coming from China, and they're like, oh yeah, we've already heard this before. It's called SARS and everything else, and we're fine. Everything started shutting down. And I think for us to weather that storm is incredible, because I remember being on a phone call with our staff in DFW. Our home is in the Northwest, in Oregon. And so Em and I are on this call, and I start getting really emotional about, hey, we have to lay everybody off, everybody but like 2 people. And so how are we going to button down the hatches? But in that moment, and Emma talks about this sometimes, in those moments where you're struggling the most, it's like super difficult, and you don't know how you're going to survive. Those are the most special moments you can ask for at all, because there's so much opportunity you have in there. So when our industry is saying, hey, we need to button down the hatches, we need to pull back, boy, we finally had an opportunity to start pushing out in the marketplace. Spaces that were closing down, now there's opportunities. Deals that can be made in a special way, we can make them here. And so in that moment, we met with our board of directors, and I was telling them, I was like, this big vision. They all thought they're getting together to find out that they lost their investment. And I was telling them, hey, we're about to go and expand in a big way, and it's going to cost us millions of dollars, and we're gonna do it. And I remember one of the board members, he's a Southern guy, and he's like, well, Jordan, that sounds great and all, but how are you gonna pay for it? And so it's like, hey, I'm not gonna worry about that. If I
I'll figure that part
get the
out.
deal, right? If I can get the deal, and the deal's right, if I believe COVID's not forever, I believe the industry is going to come back. When it does come back, we're going to position ourselves in a fantastic way. And because of our worst moment, like you mentioned, our biggest struggle, which was COVID, getting set up, because, as a startup, you don't have a lot of like money just laying around.
Yeah.
It's like a bunch of landmines that could just blow up. You step on the wrong one and your whole company's done. Whereas these big Fortune 500 companies can land on nukes and be fine. And so in that moment, we were like, we don't know how to pay for it, and you're trying to figure out like the opportunities there. If you can figure out what those deals look like, structure them well, man, that is a special moment. Now, having said that, I don't want to do it again. Like, I
No
don't
more
want another
viruses.
COVID. I don't want to. Yeah, look, man, storms are cool. They can't come all the time. So that's yeah. I think that was our worst part.
Wow. Yeah, certainly an eye opener after you get started. And I just find the setup of your business interesting because it's really all about, I imagine, just kind of the initial deal, the real estate, right? Like with being in airports, are most of those leases structured with like a percentage of revenue share?
Yeah,
I'd imagine, instead of just being a square footage type deal.
yeah. Do you want me to take this one, love? All right.
You go. I'll just add at the start that although this industry is small,
Hmm.
once you've mastered one airport,
Hmm.
you have mastered one airport.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That
they're
is
all
all.
different.
They are
That's
all
it.
different.
All right. So the airports, how do I say, if someone's gonna watch this, would they be upset if I say this? Nah, fuck it. The
Yes.
airports are like a mafia,
Yeah.
and in the way it's like everything is skinned off the top. So if you're gonna go into a mall and you're gonna get set up into a mall, you're gonna have your rent structure and how that works. In the airport industry, it's all about how much gross are you going to pay, how much you're going to pay on rent off the gross revenue. And then you also have to pay things like operations and maintenance charges per square foot. You have to pay for utilities. You got to pay for your internet. You got to pay for your employees. Oh, by the way, all your employees have to park off-site somewhere else. So you have to buy them all permits so they can do off-site. And then they have to come into the airport through a badging process, which sometimes can take weeks before they can get their badge. So if you have a bunch of people who quit, you can't just hire a bunch of new people. They have to go through that, FBI background check to get in.
Right.
So to your point about the contracts, it's off the top plus plus plus. So you landed on Park Place and Boardwalk, and we all know that you can go broke if no one lands on those spaces, right? When you're playing Monopoly. And with Gameway, you could absolutely, well, I would say anything in the airport industry. People lose their ass because it is very, very expensive to build in the airport space because of all the things I told you about. You can't just bring a hammer into an airport, right? So if you're a construction worker, you have to have a special badge. And so building in the airport industry is probably 3 to 5 times more expensive than building on what we call on the street side.
Hmm.
So there's an enormous amount of upfront capital that requires to go in, and then a large amount of operational capital that also has to be managed as well. So your concept better be right. And if it's not, I mean, some of our friends who are entrepreneurs have been in the airport industry have unfortunately not made it because the concept really hasn't kicked in yet, and because a lot of times that upfront capital in order to get it set
Just
up,
eats them, right? So when,
eats them alive.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it would for a lot of businesses. I could see that. When you think
Yeah.
about your operations and the people side of your business, tell us what that looks like. Which one of you is the people person versus maybe more external facing?
I love this question because Jordan and I, we both deal with people in our team, but in very different ways, don't we, babe?
No comment.
Some
It's
may
like
say
shit.
I don't want to say, I ain't saying shit.
um, and that's honestly, it's a good thing because
Mhm.
like you having the two sides and the balance, it's what's needed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, in terms of training in the sales department, messing with our team, trying to beat them at every game, that's definitely Jordan.
I was gonna
It
say
fits
not
his
you, right?
personality. Yeah, I was like, can we have a guessing game with this one? Whereas, more the HR side and making sure people are following procedures and, following customer service is definitely my side. So the blend of us together is, I think, what makes us quite special and unique because ultimately people are what makes us successful. Whether it's our customers that, are coming into our stores and our locations or, our teams. And actually, although we're a small company, some of the things that I'm most proud of are things like we have training that is across all of our stores, and it's done through, they read a book, and people who are wanting to progress up with us, that we have an avenue that they can do it already. And we're such a sort of young company because we know how valuable employees are to making us successful.
Yeah, and to one thing to add to that Emma didn't mention is that all the if you were to look at Gameway and you see, we have this thing called a Tron wall, so all of our walls are lit up. If we call it Emma named it actually the moonwalk, not the Michael Jackson, but like Neil Armstrong moonwalk, right? Because people see it, they're like, what
What's going
is
on?
this? And they stop and they stare and stuff. So having that first interaction with people to be like, this is different. This has caught my attention, and attention is probably the very best currency we have right now in America. Is like attention, attention, attention. And so when Emma, we had this new concept we're going to roll out in LAX, because one thing we didn't tell you guys when we set up in DFW, the DFW, and this is not a knock on them. This is they took a huge risk in having us, but they're like, hey, listen, don't touch my floors. I don't want you to change the floors. Don't touch my walls because I don't know if you're going to be in or out, and you're going to need to spend over $1 million to figure out how to do this. And if it fails, you have 30 days to get out. And that was the deal, the phenomenal deal that I negotiated. What a hell of a salesperson I am. And so when COVID happened, there's an opportunity in LAX, and an old Toomey space, LAX Terminal 6. That's an Alaska Airlines terminal. And so it's this awkward space. It's tiny. It's like 600 square feet. To kind of put in perspective, most of our square feet is over double that. So it's got this one wall, and then it has this other curved wall because the bathrooms they thought was really cool to make a bathroom curved. And so on the other side of it is ours. And so we have to build this weird thing. So Emma starts talking to me like, hey, I got this idea. Because to how to rebrand Gameway, she came up with this wall idea where this lighting would come through the wall, and it was weird. And she had to show me pictures. So her and the design team she works with have really focused on like, what does branding look like, and how do we really capture this so that people like Emma and other people who may not necessarily be full on gamers, it would be welcomed in there. So when she told me this, and I feel like I'm stealing this from Emma, but this is what she said to me. She goes, I want, how do I do her accent? I want it to be like,
She's like, please don't.
I want Apple Store meets esports. So if you look at esports, it's dark, it's dungy, it's like some like light. They got certain lights on there, the LED lights, and that's a very male dominated area. Males like walking there like cool, right? Females are like, no, I'm done. Like I'm not walking to that dungeon. So she's like, I love Apple Store. And it seemed like the very polar opposite. Apple Store meets esports and has a baby, and it's called Gameway. And so I couldn't see it. She develops it. And so she's done a phenomenal job in all that. So she actually also, as well as handling, a lot of the culture stuff that we mentioned, the behind the scenes paperwork, the things that people don't really see, but you have to do in order to make things move forward. Emma also does that as well.
So what 6 airports
Yeah.
are you guys in today? So if anybody's listening and they're like, damn, I want to try this out.
Yeah, so we're in Dallas-Fort Worth, DFW. We're also in Houston. There's our Texas airport. And then we are on the West Coast in LAX. We have 2 stores, one in Terminal 6, one in Terminal 3, and then also in Charlotte Airport in North Carolina.
Cool.
And then there'll be more coming this year. So keep an eye out.
That's awesome. So Ethos Effect podcast, we're always talking about what drives entrepreneurs, right? So you guys have shared successes, you've vulnerably shared failures. I appreciate it. I want to know what drives you. And is it the same between the two of you? Do you share an ethos, or do you each have your own separate vibe when it comes to your why?
Do you want me to go?
Go on. Yeah, you go first.
Okay. Getting into the video game industry the way we are, it kind of dates back. I was a kid, I played Super Mario Brother.
Yes.
Yeah, I played for hours. I played hours. I played so much that I literally would take a toilet paper and wrap it around my thumb because I'd get blisters. But look, someone's got
Committed,
to save the
man.
princess,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, fully. And then I was in the Army for 8 years. I went to Afghanistan and did some stuff there. And so while I was in Afghanistan, the group we were with, we would link up and play Halo on Xbox. And for those who don't know, when you're in Afghanistan, you're doing these missions, they could be very, very difficult. And so when we came back and we played Halo, that was the one thing that was the major stress reliever. Although sometimes you get some screen watching sons of bitches who snipe you, and people who are watching this will know what I'm talking about. But that's what we did to kind of decompress. And so people are still doing that today when they play video games. It's like, look, I'm not doing it. Most people aren't doing it to be an athlete or to make money off it. It's like I just need to check out for a moment, and that's what those video games are. So I've always had this soft spot of video games in my life. It doesn't dominate my life, but it's absolutely something that's there. And when I think about, with Gameway, and I love business, I could talk business all day, all the time, and so I can marry these two together. I think that once you start your own business and you become successful at it, it's like taking the red pill in the Matrix. Like it's your eyes are opened, and you can understand this. Your eyes are open. It's like I don't know if I could. I know I can never go back
Yeah.
to anything else. And if Gameway is to fail, then we're doing something else. And if that fails, we're going to do something else, because failure is not the thing that drives me. It's the vision that's going forward every single day. So for me, that white hot burning why, like the why question is, look, people need entertainment in airports, but it also scratches the itch of this business. It's like I'm playing a video game with my own personal life, and I'm having a freaking blast. And oh, by the way, I get to do it with my wife. I mean,
What's
that
better?
is well, most of the time that's some awesome shit.
Yeah.
Right? Every once in a while though, it's
We're gonna
like,
ask
boy,
about that too.
I need a vape. Yeah,
We've
I
got
need
our
some
own.
PTO.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, yes, I would be curious to hear how you guys think about that
For
too.
sure.
But Emma, go ahead.
You said it and touched upon it. It's like once your eyes have been opened to being an entrepreneur, and you have family history of your dad being a successful entrepreneur, and actually a lot of people in your family are entrepreneurs. So I think once you've got the bug for it, it's hard to sort of not do it. And I've been fortunate. My parents, although had stable jobs, also dabbled in entrepreneurship in the hospitality world. And I think one of the biggest things with being is that you get to really have and see a passion for transformation. And I can identify moments in my life that I have really loved in memory because of a transformation that has happened. So whether it was like when I was young and, I couldn't afford a nice horse. Friends around me could have nice horses, and I was the one that we even bought a wild pony, never been handled before. But all the hard work that we poured into this horse, and I remember saving up my pocket money to buy this pony, right? And we sold this beautiful pony when we were all said and done, and it was a wonderful transformation. Or in the hotel world, Jordan knows I talk about this a lot, is when customers used to come to my door on a Friday evening. And especially if they come out of London and they've driven, they are not the most happy. Yeah. They are tired. They are done for the week. But by the time they leave on a Sunday morning, there is a massive transformation, and you get hugs and praised, and it's so rewarding, your hard work. And therefore, I really do think by being an entrepreneur, you have the control in order to do a transformation. And we are trying to disrupt or transform this airport industry. So.
Well, you're crushing it. You guys, it's so much fun to talk to other people who think big, they're up to something bigger, and no matter the cost, you're all the way in. So let's get a little bit more personal. Yeah, right. Might as well. We're two married couples. Who's the CEO and who's how did you handle the title thing? I'm curious.
Okay, well,
so we actually both say co-founder.
Co-founder.
Yeah.
That's a safe one.
Is a thing with and that we do very separate roles, but we've always said that together, we can't do one without the other. Right hand versus left hand thing, and therefore we always label ourselves as co-founders.
I love it.
Yeah. And to kind of go on top of that, when Emma had this idea of what this could be, and I was like manic about it. I couldn't sleep. I was like, this is what we're going to do. I'm all in. I had a business before this and did okay, not great, not bad, but okay with it. And so I'm like, this is the thing. And I've learned a lot of valuable lessons, a lot of failures leading up to this point. I'm like, this is it. And I was ready to go at all the demographics and everything else. And Emma was like, I don't know if I'm ready to commit to this stuff. And so for me, my first sales job was to say, hey, babe, this vision that you had is worthy to listen to and go into. Because the way Emma works is that once she commits to something, it's all in. There is nothing else. And so as a married couple, if you're going to do something together, you have to both be saying, hey, we're going to take the leap together, because there's going to be a lot of struggles. There's going to be a lot of uncertainty. There's going to be stuff where you're going to want to blame X, Y, or Z, but you have to be like, hey, we're in the boat together. And if one person jumps in the boat and now reluctantly the other partner is in the boat, they're going to look around and be like, this is some bullshit.
Yeah, this boat sucks.
And yeah. And so out of curiosity, we brought this up, I would love to hear how you, so before I answer that, so we were like, look, because we're making this leap together, because we said yes together, then forever we're going to be an entity that's equal, has that say and stuff. And we really have never really disagreed on anything.
Because we identified on who's alpha in which department.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's critical. So yes.
Donovan and Chelsea, Donovan, who are you?
Yes, let's hear it.
I think it's very much the same thing. Like, we each have our roles and our strengths that kind of develop naturally, and we didn't really need to talk about that and say like, hey, I'm going to handle these things, you're going to handle those things. I think it very much came out with our personality where, as you might guess, Chelsea was the one that took over the human resources and the people and all that kind of thing. And I naturally gravitated towards, I don't want to call them like the executive roles, but sometimes it's like the battles, right? Like those just the things you have to deal with. Like, today it was like credit card fraud and an ongoing lawsuit and like all the like kind of business activities that aren't so much fun. I think we kind of just
it definitely was very natural. And maybe, I don't know, sometimes when I think about our journey, I'm like, there probably could have been a lot more intention at the beginning of like, okay, I'm going to do this and you're going to do this. But we grew so quickly when we started because of an amazing opportunity. We pursued partnerships with as many P&C agencies as we could. And it was just the two of us. And then within 6 years, we had 270 clients. And we're like, what the just happened? Like, it was amazing. But so we didn't really have the time, I'd say, to be like, you're really good at the financial strategies. I'm really good at employees. We just did it. Like, it was full on fucking execute, that's what it was. Yeah. But with that, my biggest lesson with working with my husband has been like, once you know what your lane is, which was established early on, stay put. Like there's a lot of times where, Donovan is very good at designing these like very robust multi-year healthcare strategies for companies that work, and they're complex and they're intense. And because I work with employees in the communications, sometimes I hear the end user experience and then immediately I'm trying to go like, well, maybe we need to change the strategy. And I'm getting in his lane and he's like, and it's quick now. Like we've developed, it used to be like fights where a couple days would go by and I'm like, hey, sorry. Now he's just like, my lane. I'm like, you got it. I'm out. So I don't know if you guys have stuff like that in your world, but you learn, right? And
just faster communication. So I'll be like, tell me what you want and I'll go get that done. And if she wants to stay in a problem, like, all right, if you want to work on that problem, you can take it, but we're not both going to do it.
That's a waste of money.
Because we're partners. So like, we can't be working on the same thing. So it's like, if you want to jump in on this, even though it maybe isn't something in yours, I trust you to take it. And
literally right before we met with you guys today, a small issue came up and Donovan was on the phone and I heard him talking about it and I'm like, oh, I know something about this. So then I'm like, ooh, I think I can help. And then I tried to help and then I tell him what I did. He's like, I already fucking did it. I was like, oh, I thought I was getting better at this, like I really, so it's just that ever evolving process. But I will say, like, I have met a lot of couples that have worked together that resent each other. They, like, they're divorced, but whatever's happened, right? I think it's been the most amazing journey. And I wouldn't trade all these little lessons and maybe these small fights here and there for anything, because building a life of freedom like this with the person you love, like, what else? To me, there's nothing better.
Yeah, I agree. There's also a level of understanding. Like, I wouldn't be able to work so many hours. And like, even our Saturday morning where we go, oh, you want to go out for like coffee? And we have kids. So it's very rare that we get like actual time one-on-one with each other. And we sat down, we're talking like work. And I actually paused and was like, should we stop talking about work? Like, is this allowed? And we were like, yeah, it's fine.
Works
like,
for you.
Because it works for us, and we are both so passionate about what we do, so we allow this freedom and being able to work and go down our passion so much.
I really found it.
Yeah, and I think
No, go ahead, Jordan.
I was gonna say it kind of goes back to like I kind of think of it like the IKEA effect. When you get an IKEA, like
The same thing. Has
I
everyone had the IKEA project?
hate
No.
putting together these fucking cabinets or
Oh, yeah.
whatever. Like we got our son a electric car, or the little kids electric car things, and it came in a box, and it was like you have to put it together. So we quickly established early in a relationship, I don't give a shit about the instructions. Just let's go, let's do it. And we'll, Emma I was over here is just reading shit. I'm like, you're not, so anyway, we established early on, basically it's like, hey, who's the chief? Right? It's like we establish if there's an area where we feel both like we can do it, we just establish right away who's the chief. And then once we establish who the chief is, if I disagree with her, the chief gets the final say. She will listen, but the chief gets the final say in that particular area. And that has worked out really well for us.
We have now made IKEA furniture. We have made that car
That's
together.
amazing.
We have made things.
We are incredible.
Still married.
Still married.
I was wondering what the IKEA.
How long have you guys been married for?
Wow.
We've actually been running our business together a lot longer than we've been married.
7 years business.
Yeah.
1.5 years married.
Yeah.
We really like put everything into the business. Like any extra capital that we had went into the business. Like we didn't buy a house. We didn't plan a big wedding. We didn't do any of the shit people normally do. It was like growth and scale all the way. And then we looked at each other, whenever you proposed to me, and he's like, we should probably fucking do this. I'm like, yeah.
It was COVID time, right? And it's like, all right, like the world is falling apart. And I was like, this is one thing that's not changing. Let's like take care of this thing.
How romantic.
So how long did you guys date for before you went into a business together?
We didn't.
We didn't.
We started working together first.
We started working together first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, how'd you meet in order to start a business together?
All good questions.
Yeah, so kind of networking. I had been in financial services for quite a few years. I'd say 4 or 5 years at that point in time. And Chelsea had just started. She was maybe 6 months, 12 months in.
So green.
And she had 21 agents under her. And I looked at this and I was like, I don't know whether to be impressed or to laugh. Like, because I'm like, she hasn't been in this industry long enough to get like the reality or like
of how fucking hard it is.
The scale of it. But she's gotten 21 people to follow her. And I guess the end of that story is I was impressed and I'm not laughing at her. So like, those 21 people, they trusted in her to follow her. And I saw the same thing in her. I was like, hey, I would trust my clients with this person. And that's kind of what we did. We started just working together on a few cases and expanded that.
Yeah. The romantic side definitely came after, which is pretty fascinating. And especially on the business front, like we knew, no emotions involved. Like he fills my gaps in business. I absolutely hate the behind the scenes battles, the lawsuits. And by the way, disclaimer, I don't think you're a real business until you've had your own lawsuit or at least one. Like, come at you. We framed our first one and we're like, let's fucking go. This is just how it works. Not that I'm encouraging them, please. But you know what I mean? Like, it's just part of, but I don't know about you guys, but like when that first one came in, it was like, I'm definitely the person that's like, like I want to stop now. And Donovan's like, let's go. Like the bull, right? But anyways, I can't even imagine adding kids into the mix. I have to be honest because we don't have kids yet. And then but when I hear you guys and I listen to you, I'm like, okay, we can do that
It's
too.
possible.
Yeah.
It is possible, but you have to. I mean, entrepreneurs are slightly crazy. So, like, we actually, John's a little bit older than myself, and he put a timeline on it. Like, he was like, look, when we open our first store, time's ticking. This is when, like, this is your cutoff. You can decide beforehand or when we open our first store. And I'm like, okay. Like, I would procrastinate. I would just keep going because business is like
The
such a
priority.
focus. Yeah. And so we did open our first store and was successful in getting pregnant. And then the reality was like having a child and commuting a lot. So by the time Zane was 6 months old, he'd been on 13 flights. And I've got stories of trying to get him through TSA on an escort privilege, and they wouldn't let my child in. I'm like, but I'm breastfeeding him. I've got no one to like take care of him. I breastfed during some like really important meetings because I'm
That's
like
amazing.
halfway across the country and not home. Like
Wow.
there's definitely a whole segment on like motherhood and entrepreneurs because it's not easy, but we like to do both. I'm glad
We like
I
to do
didn't
hard
put
things.
it off. We do.
Yeah, but let me speak into that too. Also, look, when you have your business, it's full. You guys know it's full on all the time, every day. If anything goes wrong, it's on you, and you're like, let's go to battle. Every morning you wake up, you're like, let's fucking go, and so what is gonna be that thing where you detach and love and you pour into something else too? You can have hobbies and whatever, but you're never ever going to love a child like you love your business, but you realize, oh my gosh, the whole reason for me to do this business, the whole reason for me to make this money is so that I can say, hey children, let me teach you this stuff so that you can go and do it. And then when you do it, go be good in society. Like go do something, go serve your fellow man in some way, or your community in some way and somehow. And so when we have these children, it's tough. Like we had Zane. He's our first son together. So I had a prior relationship. I have a 15-year-old daughter. Her name is Jezzy. And then we have two children. Emma and I have two boys together, Zane and Hugo, 4 and 2. It's wild, man. You come to our house, it's wild, okay? But when Zane was born and he was how old? Like a week? Was it
Oh
a
yeah.
week, Ems?
It was less than a week. Oh, my
Yeah,
first like delivering
yeah.
a child. Yeah.
Less than a
What
week.
happened?
We live in Oregon. Our location's in Dallas.
Yeah.
And our general manager just walks off the job. Just done, won't answer his phone call, walks off the job, no coverage, nothing.
I got chills,
So
by the
I
way,
look,
from that because like
yeah.
those
So
moments are just like, what the hell am I gonna do?
yeah, yeah. So I look at Emma like, this, I don't want to say his name, but this guy just walked off the job. He won't return a phone call. He's gone. I don't know what happened. And Emma goes, you got to go. You got to go. And look, I was ready to go, but my wife, she's got to be savage enough to say, hey, I can handle this. You go handle that, handle it, come back, and then you're back in the battle with me here. And so you have that understanding, and look, women have the ability to take on,
Warriors.
I mean, a lot,
Yeah.
a lot. And I am immensely proud and impressed with how much Emma can take on and work through and continue to work through. And we have a mutual friend together who they're entrepreneurs, and she works through and such. And so I think that you absolutely can do it. You just have to choose that, like, hey, I'm gonna, just like with your business, I'm gonna do it, and then we'll figure it out. I mean, that's why God invented what are they, house cleaners, and God invented
Nannies.
nannies, and everything else, right? You can hire people just like you do in a
Flexibility.
business
Outsource stuff.
to yes,
Totally.
to help you in your home.
100%.
And that home, the reason you're doing it, helping your home, is so that you can be more productive at work, so you can kind of continue to scale up your business. And so if you think of it your way of like that way of like, my home's, it's a different type of business that I got to pour into so I can scale up over here, then it works. You figure it
I
out.
love that. So really quick story and then we'll wrap up. But this just reminded me. So I was actually married before. And then opened up my first business, and it was just not a good fit, obviously. But I remember asking for, I found a lady that would clean our house for like $150 a week or something. And I was like, this is a good deal. Like my time needs to go into
Yeah.
the business, right? Like I was, a year out from opening an agency. I'm like, this is what I need. And met with so much resistance, 9 to 5 mentality. Absolutely not. Well, fast forward like a year later or 2 years later, Donovan and I are living together. We've had a business now for a little while. And I remember saying, hey, I think we should hire a cleaner. They're like $175 a week. He's like, oh yeah, hell yeah. Your time is worth more than that in an hour. Like hire them now. Why haven't you hired them yet? And it's just that mentality switch. Like I know it's an unpopular opinion to not have kids and maybe have a cleaner and all that. But like I said, everything went back into the business. So to just that value based of, I mean, that's literally nothing compared to what you guys are doing with kids and stuff. But it's just that synergy, right? And like we are going all in. It doesn't matter the cost.
So to wrap it up,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say one last thing. It's about kids and business and whatever. Is that it is like I think it's the thing that Emma and I probably clash the most because we're still trying to find what's the wavelength as we continue to scale up. Emma takes more on with her stuff. I'm taking a lot on my stuff, and neither one of us can look at each other and say my shit's more important than your shit, right? Because it's all on the same ship, and so when you come home to those kids and it's daddy, it's mommy, it's that, I mean, there's like, that's like true disconnection in a way that you can't even, I can't describe to you. So I would say probably tonight, take your wife out on a date and let's
go. Because it sounds like it's also energizing. So that sounds awesome. Guys, I have to.
It's exhausting, but it's the best.
But like the purpose energizing. I have to say, and then I'll hand it over to Donovan to like close this out. We have to have you guys back because we barely touched the surface on so much that I wanted to talk to you about because your business is so fascinating. And I just want to thank you for being vulnerable and open and real and authentic because that's the kind of shit that inspires other people to do the hard things. And that's the only way that transformation happens. And thank you, Emma, for that word. That's such a good word.
So for Gameway, what should the general population know either about upcoming locations, your growth? What are you guys looking for next as a company? Is there a way people can get involved or follow you, or what should everybody know?
Well, we are opening a locate. We are, man, how much could I share? Here's the problem is the airport, like we're in the middle of contract negotiations with multiple airports. And I think that you're going to see in the next probably 16 months or so, we'll probably be opening between 6 to 7 locations across the country, multi-million-dollar locations across the country, and our growth is going to be. I think we're just starting to scratch the surface because the biggest thing was, can we be successful? A lot of times people think this is a thing for kids. It isn't. Our demographics are adults. They're people in their 30s and 40s years old who grew up playing video games and they still play, but now they play with their children, but they're travelers, they're parents, they're workers. And so this huge wave is coming in. And if you want to kind of join with us and say, hey, I am really interested in what you guys are doing, we have our social media channels at Airport Gameway. Gameway was taken, so we had to go at Airport Gameway, and we know so little about it. I didn't even know how to get it that thing. So anyway, at Airport Gameway, follow us there. We have our individual channels as well. You can check us out. But our growth is going to be in the Northeast and the Midwest, and so many other locations.
So ultimately, our ask is to, when you're traveling next, come and have a little bit of fun. Don't worry about just getting there in time for your flight. Like, come and find a location, sit down, support us, have a bit of fun. And then if we're not in your airport and yet you do have a connection in your airport, we would love for you to shout us out to your airport or send us any connections you have so we can make it happen for you. Yeah.
One last thing that I found really interesting. Emma, do you want to show us with your statute the way to flip the bird in England?
I'd never heard such a thing.
All right, this is peace. This is peace and love and all things nice. But if you turn it around, you're not being very nice to me.
I had never heard such a thing. I found it super
Yes.
interesting.
Thank you, Jordan,
So
for the visual.
backwards
Well,
peace
Even
sign.
did test the theory by FaceTiming my parents and asking them if he put his 2 fingers up backwards, what this means, which to their disgust, they also told him that he was flipping them off. So
Oh, the English are so
Yeah.
proper. I just love it.
Oh, I got to tell you a story how underwear is called
Trousers?
it's called
Pants?
it's called pants.
Yeah.
Underwear is called pants, and pants is called trousers. And how you could really fuck that up if you're in England, which I did, trying to impress her dad the very first time I met him. So he's an executive, and so that went over like a rock.
Did
in
you like
water.
his pants or something? You're like, I like your pants.
Dude, that's what I did. Donovan, you okay, listen, you're in sales, right? And you're like, hey, I'm gonna find common ground here, right? And so he comes walking down the steps, and his name's Pete. I go, Pete, I love your pants. That's the first thing I said to him when I met this guy, right? Hey, Pete, I love your pants. He goes, excuse me? And I'm like, your pants? Where'd you get them from? Emma's dying laughing, and I had no idea what I just said until I got known later that I just was complimenting his underwear, which I'm sure was great.
Also,
But-
yeah. That's so funny.
Also. Hey, but Donovan, it looks like you're a guy who works out a little bit.
Sometimes, yeah, I try to.
Well, you look a little. So how important is it having that physical interaction with weights and training and such, so that you can really maximize your effort in business on a daily basis?
For mental sanity, it's everything.
Everything.
It
Yeah.
has to happen. It's a
If it doesn't
requirement.
happen, it's a problem for all of us,
Yeah.
you know?
I
Like that.
Yes.
Is it the same
Yes.
for you?
Yeah. Oh,
massively.
no
Yeah.
question about it. Like Emma will tell me sometimes, "Hey, I think you need to go to the gym,"
Yeah.
and so I will. And there's nothing better than kicking my own ass,
Yeah.
right? Because my wife, I can't really kick her ass; she'll kick my ass. So I better go kick my own ass, and then everyone's asses are nice.
Exactly. I love it. Well,
Yeah.
guys, this has been so good. I'm not kidding. Like, if you come down to Orlando or if we're up in your area, we need to meet. We need to hang
Yeah.
out. This was amazing.
Love it.
Thank you so much. And we'll have you again soon on the Ethos Effect podcast.